agenda has 4 parts, as you just heard. The first is I'm going to be talking about what I call intentional teaching. The second, science of active learning. And the third, Taejae vision and active learning sciences. And finally, plans for the next 3 years. So let's start with the idea of intentional teaching. I was asked, what is the future of higher education? I think this is the wrong question to ask. A better question is, what are the futures, plural, of higher education? I think there are many futures based on differences in purpose and focus. So let me expand on that. Each type of education has a specific set of goals. The goals are captured in learning objectives. This is a crucial concept, learning objectives. So I want to focus on it for a moment. A learning objective is not a topic. It is measurable. It is specific. And it is active. So here's an example of a learning objective. Understand DNA and RNA. This is a poor example. It's at least not a topic. If it just said DNA and RNA, that would be a topic. At least it has a verb. But the verb is understand, which is very difficult to measure. There are levels of understanding. It's not specific, it's general, and it's not active. It's not clear what to do. So look at this. Describe the chemical and structural characteristics of DNA and RNA. This is much improved. Describe is specific, it's active, it's measurable. We can measure if someone describes it correctly or not, and it's not a topic. So a learning objective describes what the instructor or the designer wants the students to learn. This is crucial for active learning, because without that, you don't know what you're trying to teach. So each type of education has a specific set of goals. The goals are captured in learning objectives. Learning objectives are specified at different levels. So at the level of an institution, we have the vision and mission. For example, you might want to train international leaders, people who are comfortable in international settings and capable of leading internationally. That's institutional. Program, general competence. You might have arts and humanities. You might have AI and data science. You have general programs where there's a general kind of competence. Within each program, you have courses that are in specific domains. And then within each course, they break down into units, major sections, and finally for each individual session, 60 or 90 minutes, you have learning objectives. So you have different kinds of learning objectives at the different levels. We need intentional teaching. Intentional teaching is about student learning. Intentional teaching is learning objective driven. So it's teaching that is designed to help the students learn and learn that particular learning objective, directed by learning objective. So different types of courses have different types of learning objectives. So types of courses, let's consider. All Western and many other universities have 3 categories of courses. They have general education, in which the learning objectives are foundational. They're supposed to give you a foundation that'll last the rest of your life. They have major, where they're domain focused, some particular area like psychology or sociology or whatever, that the learning objectives are focused on the domain. And then they have electives, where the learning objectives are to help students explore different kinds of things. However, if you actually look at in practice, general education is often just random samples of courses. In Western universities, you might have 3 columns. natural science, social science, arts, humanities, take 2 from each. There's no real structure. There's no real attempt to prepare a foundation. It's just a name only. The major, they're often legacy subjects like psychology, mathematics, things that departments are named after. And electives are often just faculty interests, seminars that the faculty want to teach because it's something they're interested in. Well, here's a different way to look at it. Here's an alternative structure, a new kind of practical knowledge. So we can think of 3 layers of courses. At the top are job-related, courses that will help students directly get a job. In the middle are what I call human skills. And then the bottom, the biggest foundation, is liberal arts. Let me go through what I mean. The critical part is the middle, human skills, critical part. So examples of human skills: critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, clear communication, leadership, working on teams. These are all human skills. They're important for interacting with other people. They will not be easily automated in the future. If you master them, you'll not be replaced by a machine. And they are crucial for the entire curriculum. So if you look at job skills by themselves, they're rather brittle. So for example, this is my prop. See this? You've seen these before, I suspect. There's a foundation in New York City which trains high school dropouts to fix cell phones. What happens to cell phones every few years? They change. And those students lost their jobs after about 3 years because they were trained very narrowly and brittly just to fix those phones. They weren't able to adapt as the world changed, as the phones changed. So human skills are adaptive. Think about those skills: problem solving, critical thinking, and so forth. Those are the skills you need to adapt. Liberal arts, that knowledge of the world around you, mathematics, society, cultures, economics, that really is foundational, particularly for being a good citizen. So there are different emphases for different institutional missions. So if you go to the learning objectives at the very top, the mission and vision, there are different emphases on these 3 categories depending on what your mission and vision is. Human skills are critical. I have them in the middle because they filter up and down. So human skills filter up to job skills because they allow job skills, vocational skills, to evolve. They allow students to adapt as the job changes. So when you learn to fix a cell phone, but you have human skills also, you know how to critically think, you know how to solve problems, you know how to communicate, to ask questions well, and so forth. Then you can adapt your job skills as the phones change. But the human skills also filter down. They help students apply knowledge from liberal arts to their daily lives so they can be productive citizens and they can live full lives. So we can map the triangle, job skills, human skills, liberal arts, into the traditional 3. General education, we can now say true foundation would be human skills and basic liberal arts courses. That's a true foundation, general education. The major should be forward-looking, particularly combinations of liberal arts courses that are often interdisciplinary and transnational. Forward-looking, the way the world is evolving, not just based on legacy departments. And electives, 2 types: short samplers of liberal arts courses so you can decide if it's for you. Is this something you want to do? So try it out. An elective, a short sample for non-majors of liberal arts courses, and also student-driven specialized courses, not faculty-driven. Courses students are interested in, that's what they want to explore for elective. So a focused liberal arts program, one example of the many different futures of higher education. would be a university education that helps the individual live a full life, drawing on liberal arts, combined with human skills to evolve, helps the individual get a good job, helps the individual grow as times change, both personally and in the job, creates responsible and informed citizens who will not be fooled by disinformation and misinformation because they have good critical thinking skills, among other things, and creates citizens who promote societal harmony. This kind of a program grows out of that triangle, those three kinds of courses. Science of active learning, the second part I want to talk about. What I've been talking about so far is the what. It's the content. Now let's shift to the how, the form. So content and form. So what? Now let's talk about how. So the goal, learning that sticks, that you remember, and can be applied in new situations. So it's not just dead knowledge sitting in your head because you've memorized it. It's knowledge that you can use when appropriate in the service of accomplishing your goals. So at the end of the day, all right, let me ask you a question. I want to give you an intuition here. At the end of the day, you're laying in bed. You look back with your eyes closed. You think about what you did during the day. Here's the question I have for you. What percentage of what you recall did you intentionally try to memorize at the time it occurred? So you're laying there and you think about a conversation you had, you think about a walk you took. How much of what you remember did you try to memorize when it was happening? Can you raise your hand if 50% or more? No one's ever raised their hand. How about 25% or more? Okay. How about 15% or more? 10%? 5%? So I've done this with thousands of people now, literally. And the modal number that I get is somewhere between 5 and 10%. So think about this. This implies that somewhere between 90 and 95% of what you remember at the end of the day, you did not try to memorize. This is technical term is called incidental memory. It's memory that is a byproduct of paying attention and thinking through the information or event. So the vast majority of what is remembered is a byproduct of paying attention and thinking through the information or event. So the key to learning is engagement. The key is engagement, to have them pay attention and think it through. So we want to focus on learning versus teaching. So if you change the orientation, you say, what's going to help them learn? Well, the very first thing is you have to get them to pay attention and think. Comprehension leads to memory, leads to learning just by itself. So what is active learning? Active learning is using information or skills. So information like liberal arts, think facts you learn, skills, human skills, job skills, in the service of achieving a learning objective. Back to that, learning objective. So it's learning by using. So you've been given information, but you don't just store it. It's dead knowledge. You use it to accomplish something. That thing is specified by a learning objective. So the active learning exercise has been designed so you do something that uses information you've been given to help achieve a particular learning objective. So active learning depends on specifying clear learning objectives. That's why I took so much time at the beginning to talk about what a learning objective is. So it's learning by using. Active learning has a goal. So for example, here's a learning objective. Identify appropriate negotiation strategies in specific contexts. So say you're taking a course on leadership, and part of that is you have to learn to negotiate well. And part of that is you have to understand that the way you negotiate is going to be different in different contexts, depending on power relations and various resources that are available to the various parties. So that's a learning objective. So you could have activities like the following. You could have a role play about water rights negotiations. So you set up a game, small groups, say 4 students, many groups of 4 students, who represent different constituencies. So one represents farmers. They need water for their crops. One, homeowners. They want water to take showers in their lawns and things. One, engineers who have to get the water. Worried about that. Another, environmentalists. So you have them role play a negotiation. How much water are the engineers willing to give? How much are the environmentalists willing to say is reasonable? How much do farmers get? So by having them do this activity, you can address this learning objective, identify appropriate learning strategies in specific contexts. But you don't want just one activity. You can also have a role play for job offer negotiations. Now just 2 people, one playing the boss, one the applicant. Different kinds of negotiation. Next, role play international territorial rights negotiation, big picture. So different kinds of negotiation will lead them to deeply think through, pay attention, consider what they were taught in a lecture about different ways of negotiating. But by actually using it in these ways, they will then be able to use it in the real world. They'll have a kind of transfer. So another example, analyze trade-offs between working for a small company versus working for a large company. Different learning objective. So here activities might be things like debate pro versus con for joining a large company. So one group would argue that it's good, another is bad. And in order to do the debate, you have to think through the information that underlies the learning objective, the trade-offs between working for a small company versus a large company. Similarly, critique arguments other people have made for pro versus con. Similarly, role play a day in the life of each type of company, identifying the trade-offs. So these kinds of activities are designed based on the learning objectives. It's the learning objectives that lead you to design what they do, so they use the information they've been taught in a way in class they'll later be able to use in the real world to help their professional lives, personal lives, and so on. So what is active learning? Using information or skills in the service of achieving a learning objective. A third part, the vision. So why Taejae and active learning sciences? So I've been fortunate to have early drafts of many documents, one of which is the Digital University Charter, which I found extremely inspiring, by the way. The specific wording in the draft may change before the final version is released, but I'm sure the sentiments, the ideas, will no doubt remain the same. So for example, educate students to become leaders who can work in harmony with people from around the world as global citizens. This is completely consistent with what we're trying to do at Active Learning Sciences. Educate students to understand global change and social innovation and contribute to useful innovation. So those human skills, problem solving, good communication, leadership, working on teams, totally fits. Educate students to collaborate as a group and accumulate useful knowledge and experience so they can be broadly applied to a changing world. So what I advocate are these human skills at the center to help you adapt, completely consistent. Offers practical education, and open education at the global level, organizes and operates a curriculum that reflects the needs of society and the times. Multidisciplinary subjects and project-oriented education that requires discussion and collaboration, active learning. Various teaching and learning methods and types of infrastructure that are developed and supported for effective lectures and class operation. This is just the sort of thing that active learning sciences does. It's a very good match. Why? Final part, next 3 years. So we're going to do two kinds of things. The first is curricular design. So we'll help with the program design, okay, at the very top level. We'll help with the sustainability, digital transformation, and geopolitical diplomacy nano degrees, which are already underway. We'll review syllabi. We've already started doing this on this trip. So syllabi should be designed in terms of learning objectives at different levels of scale for the entire course, for each unit within it, and then each session. So we will help create learning objective-driven syllabi. Tutorials design, we'll help with that. Capstone design, review lesson plans. So we design every lesson plan as a PowerPoint deck, which specifies the learning objectives, specifies the kinds of active learning they're going to engage in to achieve those learning objectives. We will help both create those and review ones that are created here. And we will oversee lesson plan design. We will help at the very detailed level. The other thing, in addition to curricular services, we do what we call wraparound services. So faculty training. We will help the faculty learn to teach using active learning. Faculty evaluation procedures. How well are they doing? How can we help them get better? What kind of feedback can we provide? Digital operations. So we did some of that today about talking about how to integrate a learning management system, LMS, with Zoom in ways that are very useful for promoting the kind of teaching that I've just been describing. Faculty recruitment. We want to get people from all over the world who are expert, who have the right kind of orientation and perspective. They're internationally oriented. Learning analytics. We want to see if it's working. We need data in order to figure out how to make it better. Student admissions process. We want very specific kind of students who are going to become leaders in an international format. We want to nurture them. We need to pick the right people to do that. Student recruitment. Given when we know what we're going to look for, we have to get them. Student coaching and advising, very important. You need to help them along the way to make sure they stay on course. Experiential learning, we talked about that today too. We need to integrate what happens in class with the learning objectives in courses and in the programs with what they do in cities in different countries. So they are using their experience in the other cultures to integrate more fully what they've learned in class, and vice versa, where what they learn in class illuminates, helps them get insights into other cultures they visit. This is necessary if you want to nurture international leaders. Course evaluation procedures, and then finally, on-site lecturing and advising. I will be visiting at least twice a year. My team will be here on and off. And lastly, there'll be an international advisory board. People in educational technology, education writ large, perhaps industry, some, who will help give us advice on what we've been doing and advice on what we should be doing next. So, I thank you for your interest. That is my perspective on the relation between active learning sciences, what we can do in Taejae, and our job is to help Taejae succeed at what Taejae wants to do. So we are here, ready, willing, and I hope able to help. Thank you.